Welcome, everyone.
Good to see you all. Good to really deeply contemplate this incredible teaching, the Heart Sutra, and to find our own way into understanding, unlocking the depth that is here. So I'd like to start this morning just by inviting you to sit back and just quickly look at your experience. Not what you should be thinking or feeling, not what you know meditation should be teaching you, but just here's this body, this is me, I'm sitting in front of my computer, and I'm listening to something on the computer is the way I'm experiencing this. So let's just take in pretty much where we are. So it's likely that we're pretty ensconced, no matter how long we've been practicing, in that sense of a separate individual self that's having a life that's different from all the other lives, that's walking on top of the earth, separate from the animals and the trees and the ground. It's pretty much no matter how much we've been studying so far, we're still beginners, and this is our experience of our mind and of what we understand to be reality. And I'm saying this morning because I want to really emphasize how we learn and how gradual it is. Sometimes I think we have the expectation that magically in this class we're going to have the sudden experience that Avalokitesvara had, doing a few minutes of contemplating the Heart Sutra. And we need to really respect that it's a very gradual unfolding. So I want to go again to the pictorial view. And it'll just take a minute. Okay, there we go. So if we think of really what our experience actually is, we could say, if we look at the picture on the left, what do we see? Well, we see the tree and the rocks. That's my current reality. There's the tree and the rocks, and there's, a gray seascape. I can suspect there's something there, but all I'm really experiencing is the tree and the rocks. And the Heart Sutra is a little bit like Shariputra coming to Avalokitesvara and saying, well, I'm the tree and the rocks. I see the tree and the rocks. This is the nature of reality. And Avalokitesvara goes, nope, go look again. So Shariputra goes and practices and contemplates for a long, long time. And he comes to a new understanding. So, okay, he goes back to Shariputra and he says, I don't just see the tree and the rocks. My experience right now is the tree and the rocks and degrees of gray shapes. And I can see and understand really that the world, my experience is both of these. And Avalokiteshvara goes, nope, not enough, not yet. So then he sits and listens to the teachings, long time, comes back, oh, Avalokiteshvara, I can see that there is another whole aspect beyond the gray. I can see that there's this island. I still see the trees and the rocks, but I see that there is another whole aspect of reality. Avalokiteshvara goes, nope, not yet. He comes back and he practices and he changes his perspective and he looks and he investigates and he goes to Avalokiteshvara, oh, I wasn't seeing it all before. Now I see there's this incredible blue clarity, there's color, there's, this beautiful island and there's another shore. And Avalokiteshvara, oh, so you're doing so well with your meditation, but no, not yet. And so he goes again and he comes back and he goes, oh my goodness, Avalokiteshvara, it is incredible. There's something even greater. And Avalokiteshvara goes, no, not yet. So from this example, I'm hoping to present, yes, we have an experience and we are trained to interpret that experience as a truth. I can see the rocks in the tree, that's my truth. Everybody should be seeing that. That is what is real and what's really going on. And then the Heart Sutra is introducing a whole different experience, a whole different perspective, and a whole different way of learning. So, you've probably read and you've probably heard me say many, many times that there's listening, contemplating, and meditating. So we're listening to these talks on the Heart Sutra. And as we're listening, we're hearing something, but it hasn't changed our perspective, right? We're still individuals sitting in front of the computer. And then essentially the first step is just curiosity and questioning. Well, the Heart Sutra is pointing to a bigger experience, a more complex experience. It's different from my experience. But it's said that an incredible breakthrough is just to question our direct experience as we understand it, to open to the possibility of a different experience. So that's a huge breakthrough. And I mentioned before at one of the early lectures that they've done brain studies on students going from high school to college and upper level courses in physics or chemistry. And they can see that students in a classroom can learn about a new theory that contradicts their earlier learning or expands their earlier learning. And they have to really struggle to take in a new view. They can see it, they can intellectually understand it, but it's not their experience, so they can't hold on to it. So when I was saying that Shariputra just sees a gray shape and he has to really think about it and contemplate it for a long, long time and goes back to Avalokiteshvara, it's because intellectually he sees it. He can understand that Avalokiteshvara is telling him there is more to learn, but he hasn't taken it in as a full experiential understanding. So we can look at the blue sky and we can know that there are stars there, but we don't see the stars in the daytime. We don't even think about the stars in the daytime. We can know it, but we don't experience it as our reality. An astronaut may be able to do that because they have had a full understanding that has been long enough that it has actually transformed the way they see the nature of reality. It has been long enough and significant enough that it totally changes their perspective. Right now, when we're talking about the Heart Sutra, essentially, we're talking intellectually and we're talking what might seem to be theories. So there's listening, then there's contemplating, and then there's meditating. And the third stage of learning is meditating or retreat. And that's why the retreats that we offer are so very special, because it gives us a chance to really sit with what we are learning and gradually take parts of it and contemplate it long enough that it changes our perspective to a new way that we see our minds, our relationship to the world. And it is so significant or significant enough that it is with us always, and it is the way we are, as opposed to knowledge or intellectual understanding. And I want to read, there's a wonderful quote by Thich Nhat Hanh. Perfect understanding is prajna paramita. The word wisdom is usually used to translate prajna, but I think wisdom is somehow not able to convey the meaning. Understanding is like water flowing in a stream. Wisdom and knowledge are solid and can block our understanding. In Buddhism, knowledge is regarded as an obstacle for understanding. If we take something to be the truth, we may cling to it so much that even if the truth comes and knocks at our door, we won't want to let it in. We have to be able to transcend our previous knowledge in the same way we climb a ladder. We can only go one rung at a time. We need to learn to transcend our own views to reach understanding. Then, like water can flow, it can penetrate. It can penetrate views, knowledge. We need to understand that intellectual knowledge is not understanding. And we're moving in these contemplations from knowledge to understanding. And understanding affects what we are naturally seeing as ourselves, our world, and our relationship to both this presence and all appearances. So I know that sometimes there's just been a little bit of frustration of, why isn't it immediate understanding to understand emptiness or the Heart Sutra, as opposed to not only is this lifelong, but it's lifelong in conjunction, not only with studies and going to Dharma talks, but with retreats where you absorb into your not into your bones is a way of saying into the way you perceive. Okay, I'm going to go back to our wonderful pictures. Whoa. So we're still on this verse, which is called the Fourfold Profundities. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Form is none other than emptiness, emptiness is none other than form. And I shouldn't use the word still. We are delightedly contemplating this, and we're beginning to understand its profundity. And we've been looking at it from the perspective of form. Listen, Shariputra, this body itself is emptiness, and emptiness itself is this body. This body is not other than emptiness, and emptiness is not other than this body. So when we think of our experience, there are two aspects. There's the material, the matter, the solid form, the body, and the earth outside, the trees, things that we can put our hands on and touch. And then there is how we perceive this body, the rocks, the tree, and that's with our mind. And the Heart Sutra groups the mind into these different aspects: feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. So I think we're starting to be able to experience in our meditation our body as impermanence, our body as interdependence, our body as interbeing. We're at the level of contemplating it. We may not be at the level of understanding it in the way that Thich Nhat Hanh expresses understanding. It's not knowledge, it's an all-affecting relational perspective. And so we can't really separate our body from our mind, because our mind is how we experience. And so let's take it from the perspective of feeling this morning and replace the word feeling with replace the word form with feeling. Feeling is emptiness, emptiness is feeling. Feeling is none other than emptiness, emptiness is none other than feeling. Listen, Shariputra, this feeling itself is emptiness, and emptiness itself is this feeling. This feeling is not other than emptiness, and emptiness is not other than this feeling. So as we are sitting here, our mind is a mixture of all kinds of jumbled thoughts and experiences, and a feeling or a tonal response to all of those thoughts and experiences. So for instance, John was bringing up, he has a tonal response to the word emptiness. You say the word emptiness and there's frustration and resistance and irritation, let's say. I hope that's accurate, John, and not to single you out. Many people also share that. It's an awkward word in English to express what we're trying to express. But just to say, everything that we're perceiving comes with a tonal coloring that is so, it's not at the same time, but it so quickly follows the direct perception that we can't separate it. We think that the feeling comes together with the actual perception. In any case, what we can examine, is there any feeling separate from the thought or the sensory experience? And is this feeling response something that is unchanging, something that's impermanent? And in this situation, we're not talking about potential spiritual experiences in the future. We're talking about here and now, a tonal response. So, you could look outside and see a cloudy, rainy day on the day you wanted to garden, and you'd have a tonal response of, I don't want it to be like this today. Or you could be looking at your beloved and having a tonal response of, oh, this is wonderful. And so we can examine, is there actually any tonal response, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, that's individual and separate? Or is it something that is dependent on the thought, the sensory experience, and is momentary and changing? So let's just start this. Let's start really, really simple. Look at your surroundings and look at one object in your surroundings. I'm looking at a plant on my table, and it's very easy to have a vague kind of pleasant tonal response to that plant. So select one object within your environment and notice the tonal response that seems to come at the same time. It wasn't there before. Does it last? Now switch your gaze to something else in the room. And notice different tonal response. They may be similar, but they're not exactly the same. Or they may be, okay, I have a pile of papers I haven't filed. I have a different kind of tonal response to that pile of papers. But the tonal response is dependent on that pile of papers. In the same way, the different tonal response is dependent on the plant. Let's go to one object again. And staying with that one object, you might have a variety of tonal responses. You can see that staring at one object, not only is there a tonal response to that object, but as thoughts arise relative to that one object, there are different tonal responses to each and every thought. Just looking at one object, letting those thoughts settle, not trying to think too hard, trying to notice that tonal response that comes before the thinking, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Going deep to see that tonal response, and then examining with curiosity, can that exact tonal response arise separately and stay permanently? So, in examining like this, we're taking an aspect of our mind through the same questioning curiosity that we were taking our bodies. If it's not singular, if it's not permanent, then it means it's changing, impermanent, and interdependent. So these are the words that we're using to understand the nature as opposed to our views or our assumptions. For instance, it could be any time in history, it could be any time in our lives where we didn't agree with the way the world was run, and an emotion would arise, and we would go, I'm angry, I'm afraid, I am something. And there's an association of connecting what we believe to be a truth, like the rock and the tree, and connecting it with an emotion, and assuming or overlaying a singular identity on that experience of a view of reality. The world is like this, and I'm feeling this way about it, and I am angry, afraid, worried, etc. And we might say, I'm angry all the time. We might say, I'm an angry person. We construct an identity. So here we are, when we look closer, this flowing river of interdependence and connection that has a flowing river of colors of different tonal responses to every single piece of information that's coming through our senses in every single second, and is changing like a kaleidoscope. But we try and freeze it and turn it into an entity that is unchanging. Even though when we examine it, we know it can't be like that, yet our experience, as we describe it to itself, is I am angry. I am angry all the time. I am afraid. I'm afraid all the time. I'm happy all the time. This freezing and simplifying and clinging to a view that hardens into a kind of identity. I'm this way. I see the world this way. So the importance of this is so clear in our world today. We have all these different voices of these figures, let's say, and they're all talking about the trees and the rocks that they know to be true, and because it's true, the way to fix it is this way. And this person's trees and rocks are totally different than this person's trees of rocks, and no one can understand why you're not seeing the truth in the same way that I'm seeing the truth. So I'm going to read the quote by Thich Nhat Hanh again. Understanding is like water flowing in a stream. Wisdom and knowledge are solid and can block our understanding. If we take something to be the truth, we may cling to it so much that even if the truth comes and knocks at our door, we won't want to let it in. So for this morning, we're just looking at how we construct a truth a flowing river of millions of tonal colors into one giant anger, fear, pride, greed, I guess greed is the best way to express the grabbing quality. And if we can soften, even to just see shades of gray in one emotion, then we can start to see, wow, this latest event has lots of colors in it, lots of tonal responses. And if I look at one tonal response, I can watch it sort of take hold and fade away. It has a little bit of strength for a moment and then fades away. I can start to experience all of these feeling states as a flowing river that I don't have to inflict on all my friends and family. I can watch the flowing river and soften and let go. I can start to put together the flowing river of this aspect of my mind as a new perspective instead of jumping on to righteousness, judgmentalism. Instead of going right into righteousness about anything, about how you cook rice. Instead of going into righteousness, I can watch the tonal flow shift and change and play. If I can watch the tonal flow of a simple thing shift and move and have lots of variations, then I can watch the tonal flow of something more difficult in the same way. And then I can loosen the quality of, this is my experience, it's a truth. And everybody should agree with this particular truth. We can cultivate an open, gentle, receptive perspective. Dialing down righteousness, dialing down judgmentalism. It doesn't affect seeing suffering and acting to lessen the suffering. It's how we're holding our minds and how we're seeing all the interdependent causes and conditions to act more wisely. So let's sit and contemplate again. Just noticing, now sitting in front of your computer, can we hold on to a bigger picture? In this moment, we're not only in our own environments, but we're connected to each other. And every minute that we're sitting together, there's sensory experiences going on, there are jumbles of thoughts and tonal responses to those thoughts and to our sensory environment. We're connected to all the work that went into the people who produced the food that we had for breakfast. We're connected to our ancestry. We're connected to all the beings that taught us. We're connected to all the trees and plants in our environment with our interconnected breathing. We're having an interdependent relationship with all the beings on earth, human and non-human. The water that we're drinking is connected to the sky and the oceans and all the waters going in and out of all the bodies of all of the beings. The prayers and aspirations subtly penetrate our minds and our experience, subtly penetrate how we act, and that affects our families and everyone we touch. Even without saying anything, our presence, holding this interconnection, is a different presence than a presence that's disconnected and self-absorbed. This interconnected presence is a field. So we might be able to hold this for a very brief second or two in our meditation this morning. But when we absorb this and understand in the way that Thich Nhat Hanh is using the word understand, a complete change of perspective from self-centered and absorbed to interbeing. When we're able to hold that perspective, that's bodhicitta, that's compassion and kindness. Kathy Mills was saying, what is the basis for action? When we're holding this interdependence and clarity, interbeing, without any self-absorption, then every action is naturally an act that is beneficial. There's a natural awareness of what's discordant, what's suffering, and an impulse of movement of bodhicitta. So if we can hold the confidence that our understanding is naturally opening because we are listening, contemplating, and taking these guiding I don't know what words to use, the guiding, pointing finger to something bigger. And have our minds reflecting and contemplating just on maybe one aspect of it. Even if during the day, a couple of times, you go back to what's happening with my tonal responses and how is it not one big hard thing, but an interdependence of a kaleidoscope of variation, letting it soften and fall away. Seeing things arise and fall away, arise and fall away. And how that softens how you are with people. It softens the pride and righteousness and judgmentalism. It softens the sense of separation, because we're focusing on interconnection, not separation, interbeing. It might just change your family dinner, your relationship with your pet and your plants. And it will ease the frustration because you won't have the expectation that it's going to be some thing that magically happens in one meditation session, as opposed to a gradual clearing that has to be taken into your experience one step at a time. Okay. We think we know impermanence, but every time we're Shariputra and we go to Avalokiteshvara, it goes, nope, go meditate again. You're starting, you're on the road, but go meditate again. We don't have a lot of time for discussion today, but I really encourage you, just keep letting your mind soften and curiously asking questions and noticing when you go back to, wow, I'm right back in, here's me in front of the computer. Can I soften into interbeing again?